Suddenly the ship jolts and lands very roughly, having exited the blah blah blah. By the way, there was a 2 somewhere in there. Oh well. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. My quest to get these Hyperforce reviews caught up continues. Full disclosure, the script for this session, Session 10, was written on the same night as the 12th session of Hyperforce aired. Hyperforce just refuses to stop airing for a few weeks so I can catch up. However, I'm loving it, so it's not like I can really complain about that. So I'm going to let you folks know right from the top, we're going to be dealing with a little bit of a different one today. Hyperforce has never hesitated to grab our feels and just give them a little bit of a twist, but it went over and above the Call of Duty in that regard for this session. So let's take a look at a session that dealt with issues of secrets, distrust, paranoia, and lots of emotion in the 10th session of Hyperforce, Family. Quick note about that title before we begin, actually. When I'm actually on my Hyperforce game, I should get these reviews done and posted well before HyperRPG posts these sessions to YouTube, which is how I had been getting the titles. Now, I've had somebody point out to me that they actually get titled as soon as they're posted on Twitch Video on Demand, which is immediately after the session ends. So I do have access to what they call the sessions almost immediately. However, I actually have still preferred the creative process of coming up with titles for these sessions myself, seeing as I tend to go with more episode-style titles that are more creative, while HyperRPG tends to title the sessions in a way that more often than not is focused on marketing and making sure that the viewers know what's happening in the session, with things like Hyperforce Holiday Special and featuring Jason David Frank. But this time, since I've been so far behind, I happened to see the title of the session on YouTube, and for the first time, I just had to agree with it. It was just the perfect title. You're going to see that it's a very succinct but powerful demonstration of what this session was all about. So, for the first time since I've been reviewing Hyperforce, I'm going with the same title that they went with. 4 paragraphs in, I haven't even touched the plot, and I wonder why these reviews constantly cross 30 minutes, and even sometimes 40 minutes. We pick up right where we left off last time, with the Rangers at the side of Tommy Oliver and Dr. Anton Mercer. Alpha clued them into a disturbance across town, and teleports them over there to deal with it. They arrive at a motocross park, perhaps the same one that Blake rode at with the Dino Thunder Rangers watching? Very possible. And they see the Alliance time ship hovering overhead. They start to wonder how they could possibly wrest control of that time ship away from the Alliance, but that is interrupted by Scorpina. She yells back to the time ship saying that it can leave, she'll take care of the Rangers here and now. It does so, jumping into the time stream. The Rangers try to just talk to Scorpina, but she attacks, saying that the Alliance is actually trying to save the world and time from people just like the Rangers. Marv and Jack take some decent damage from Scorpina. Jack throws his hammer at her, but she catches it and starts toying with it. Eddie runs over and snatches the hammer back from Scorpina, kind of uppercut smacking her with the handle of it as he does. Chloe fires off a Hurricane Whirlwind, which hits her for some more damage and knocks her down. Vesper jumps on top of her and starts punching her in the chest, but one of her punches messes up with the timing and she gets Scorpina directly in the throat, knocking her out. The Rangers, for some reason, have a little bit of trouble getting practical plasma restraints on the unconscious Scorpina, but they finally manage it. They bring Scorpina around, but at first she seems kind of confused about who the Rangers are. But then her mind clears and she's very upset at them for capturing her. They start firing questions at her about the Alliance, but all she'll say is that she's not supposed to share that information. Vesper removes her helmet and gives Scorpina one of those big-eyed, pouty-eyed looks, but all that does is confuse her. The Rangers point out to Scorpina that the Alliance has abandoned her. They've left her stranded in time, and they're not coming back, it looks like, so she better start talking. She tells the Rangers that she highly doubts that they would just abandon her in the year 2005. The Rangers have to admit that she's right and decide to take her onto their time ship. On the ship, Alpha says that the ship doesn't actually have any sort of brig, but it's possible that they could construct one. Jack decides to go a little more practical and just uses more of the plasma restraints to tie her to a chair. Chloe asks Scorpina if she is hungry, and in perhaps a slight moment of weakness, Scorpina asks if she can have a banana. It just so happens that Chloe's been working on a banana burrito, because of course she has. But Marv wants to keep it from Scorpina. The two try to play good cop, bad cop, but don't really know how to do that, creating a little bit of comedy. Marv tells Scorpina that if the Alliance succeeds in their mission, the Rita and Zed that she so faithfully served will never have existed. That reminds Eddie of how the Alliance has been talking about saving Zordon. Eddie is on the same page that I was about the whole Zordon theory, remembering and explaining the Z-Wave to everybody else. Alpha loads up a historical program that fills in the few gaps in Eddie's story. Eddie guesses that the Alliance wants to prevent Zordon's death, thus preventing the Z-Wave, and then they would be able to merge their already formidable army with the United Alliance of Evil. They decide that they should really get Jen's take on this. Chloe got bored during all of this and started feeding Scorpina that banana burrito. Since she's just kind of passively eating it, the Rangers decide that maybe it would be possible to befriend Scorpina. However, Scorpina tells Vesper that she doesn't need any friends. She breaks free of the plasma restraints, fires off a big arc of white electrical light, which damages many of the systems and kills the lights inside the ship, and then runs off inside of the ship. The ship is now apparently in the hyperstream, despite never having taken off, unless Alpha did that when they reboarded the ship, but it was not mentioned. The point being that there's nowhere for Scorpina to actually go. They cut on some flashlights and decide to split up. Jack goes with the girls, and Marv and Eddie are the other team. Jack and the girls head to the kitchen to check things out there, but nothing is going on there, much to Chloe's relief. As they head to check out the quarters, Vesper asks Jack if his information into their pasts, as well as the Alliance, which is actually still strung up all over the ship, revealed anything about her past. He says he did find a bit of information about some kind of research project. However, that research project took place off-world, so there was very little information that he was able to access there. Chloe says that she feels a little bit squirmy that Jack's been digging into her past, but Jack reminds her that the Rangers were missing for weeks, and actually months. He needed information. Marv and Eddie check out the engine room, but find nothing there. Meanwhile, back with the first team, they go into the quarters, and Chloe tells Jack to check under the beds, while the girls kind of cower in one of the corners. Jack lifts the covers and finds a dog. A cybernetic dog. A cybernetic dog from Jack's childhood. This is Forge, Jack's childhood robo-dog. As a matter of fact, it died, shut down, a long time ago. The dog acts happy to see Jack again, barking and wagging his tail. As the cute little dog makes friends with the girls, Jack asks Alpha to scan the dog. Alpha says, "There's no dog in the room with you." They look down, and Forge is gone. Back over with the other guys, Marv and Eddie have a little conversation about Earth and Cayenne, but then they round the corner, and Marv finds himself face to face with a man in a Time Force uniform. And Marv begins to break down and freak out. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Joe, Marv's brother. Marv is overwhelmed and ecstatic that Joe is all right and they found each other, introducing him to Eddie, who wonders how any of this could even be possible, logically. Eddie touches Joe, but Joe is real. Joe says yes, he's real, and apologizes to Marv for being gone for so long, but says now there's nothing that he needs to worry about. Everything is okay now. Eddie can somehow just sense that this isn't right. That's something that'll be followed up on in future sessions. But Joe tells Eddie to back off and let the two of them have some bro time. Eddie does step away for a moment, calling Jack and informing him about the situation. Jack says the two of them need to get out of there, that something very strange is going on board the ship. However, Eddie cannot manage to pull Marv away from Joe to the point that he decides he just needs to leave him there and go back and check in with the others. Marv starts catching Joe up on things, starting with admitting that he took Joe's Time Force badge in order to get into Time Force. Joe says he should give that badge back, but Marv thinks he's just kidding. Joe pulls Marv in for a hug as we cut over to the others. Eddie informs the others about Joe. Chloe says that she didn't even know Marv had a brother, and Jack says his being here is impossible. We cut back over to the two brothers for that hug, but unfortunately, it's Joe hugging Marv's face with his knee, hitting him for 10 damage and then disappearing. Understandably, Marv just loses his mind and decides he needs to reunite with the other Rangers. Vesper tells Marv that they saw Forge, and since Marv and Jack had been partners, Marv knows about Forge and knows that that isn't possible. They ask Alpha to scan the air, but Alpha doesn't find any biotoxins, any problems, anything that would cause this sort of thing. Marv asks Alpha to scan his biochemistry specifically since he's had an encounter, but in doing so, Alpha realizes that he's injured. But Marv brushes this off, and as a matter of fact, just kind of goes off, period. He reveals that the only reason he joined the Time Force was to find Joe, because Time Force would not go looking for him. He explains to the other Rangers how Joe was said to have been lost in an accident 2 years prior to Marv's class. All the Time Force ever found was Joe's badge. Alpha calls the Rangers back and asks for Vesper, and maybe Eddie as well, to come and help him with something. The two of them want to go, but Jack points out that it's an incredibly bad idea to split the group up right now. However, the two of them point out that it could be important, and they are going together, so the two of them link arms and go. But now it is Eddie's turn. As they near the weapons locker, Eddie sees a woman from his past named Bianca. The two of them were childhood friends, and a little bit more actually, as Eddie reveals that Bianca is his intended in arranged marriage. It was unclear at the time if Eddie was talking more about an official arranged marriage or just something like two guys in separate families going, hey, my son, your daughter, they're going to get hitched, we're going to be family, right? However, later sessions did actually reveal that this is officially an arranged actual marriage. Eddie screams for Vesper and starts trying to head for the med bay, but Bianca grabs a hold of his hand and says, please stay with me. Vesper comes to investigate the scream, sees the two of them, and is all, oh no, demon sister, that's my man you got a hold of there. She tackles the woman, who vanishes, leaving her wrapped around Eddie. She asks Eddie who that was, and for his part, Eddie is actually completely honest about the entire situation. Vesper is ready to wipe this woman from existence, but she's already disappeared. Vesper tries to play the whole thing off, but she was clearly very, very jealous. The two of them reach the med bay, and Alpha says besides this energy cell, there are also some panels over here that need replacement. Vesper says Eddie might be a little preoccupied at the moment, and starts beeping and booping at Alpha. Alpha responds in beeps and boops instead of asking her what she's doing as he normally would, and he seems strangely not himself at first. However, Vesper grabs a hold of him and he seems real enough, doesn't disappear or anything. Alpha leaves for the control room and leaves them to tend to the repairs. Vesper crosses the room away from Eddie, turns around, and Eddie is standing directly in front of her. He apologizes for his bad start today, saying that he wants to be the best man he possibly can be for her. He's being incredibly smooth, and she's actually taken it first, starting to rattle off a list of qualities that he can improve or change to be a better match for her. He starts taking down notes. Then Vesper catches herself and says right now they need to focus on their mission. Eddie turns around and sees Vesper talking to somebody. So he walks over and asks who she's talking to. She says, "Quiet, Eddie, I'm talking to Eddie." Yeah. Eddie spins the man around, looks directly into his own eyes, and then sees himself transform into Forge and runs away. So yes, fairly obviously, the second Eddie was fake. And I didn't reveal this until now because I wanted to leave some manner of surprise if you didn't get to see the session, but the smooth Eddie that was speaking to Vesper was actually characterized by Malika, and that made it pretty clear to the audience that he wasn't real. Marv calls them for an update, and they update him on the situation. Chloe theorizes that whatever this thing is, it seems to be showing them something that they want most. Vesper says, no, that's not, nope, not it at all, totally wrong idea, no. Alpha then calls Chloe and delivers some terrible news to her. The InstaKitchen 3000 has short-circuited. After Chloe's Vader scream, no! Marv realizes that this is actually a chance to test her theory. They can send Chloe into the kitchen, and if the monster or creature or whatever it is turning into what they want most, she'll see a fully functional InstaKitchen 3000. Marv does warn her, however. It may not be something as simple as the InstaKitchen 3000. It may be something deeper, a deeper desire, something even that troubles her that she wishes could be changed. She tells him that she understands and she's willing to take that chance, but warns him not to bring the rest of the team into the kitchen until she makes that call, and he agrees. Chloe heads into the kitchen and sees not a functional InstaKitchen 3000, but her mother. This is where it starts to get really rough, heroes. Chloe tells this woman standing before her that when she was informed by Time Force that her parents had died, she decided to join the Time Force to look for them since they never actually found any bodies. However, having been this long, she started to grow to accept that they may have in fact died. It's not that she's ever going to stop looking for them. It's just that she's starting to come around to accepting the truth. The woman tells Chloe that this is not a dream. It's not a vision. This is reality. Chloe says that if this was reality, she would give up everything, being a ranger, being in the Time Force, all of it, to go with her and be with her parents again. She says that the day the Time Force told her that her parents had died, she actually still waited up the entire day in the hopes that it was a mistake and she would see them again. The woman rushes up to Chloe and hugs her. Chloe hugs the woman back, crying, and in what was an absolutely astounding bit of method acting, Megan was sitting there at the table actually crying as well. Chloe says that she never got to hug her mother the day that she died because she was rushing out the door trying to get to school. The woman says she wants to take the time ship and leave with Chloe. Marv, who has apparently been sort of eavesdropping, if not outright listening, calls Chloe on her morpher and says that she needs to ignore this woman. This is not reality. The woman tells Chloe to instead ignore Marv, and Chloe mutes her morpher. Marv makes the call not to bring the team in to honor Chloe's wishes because this is some closure that she's going to need. Chloe says that she wants to go with her mother more than anything. As a matter of fact, she's felt like her entire career in Time Force has been a lie because she only joined in the first place to find her parents. And now she's finally found her family. However, she's not talking about whoever this person is standing in front of her. She means the Hyperforce Rangers, who she calls inside. Marv and Jack bust in and start firing at the creature who vanishes. However, in a real case of loving your family, no matter how much they screw up, since the creature vanished, the two of them accidentally hit Chloe. Ow! They apologize and meet up with Alpha in the control room, who starts freaking out learning that there's a shapeshifter on board the ship, because how does he know that the Rangers even are who they say they are? Eddie and Vesper were near each other when they faced off with a fake and came back together, so they know that they are both real. And Marv was with Chloe and Jack. They wonder if this could possibly be Scorpina's doing. She does have some shape-shifting ability, and since she's been loose in the ship, she's potentially had access to Time Force files that contain information about their past. Marv says that they can use an old Cayennian hunting style to track Scorpina down, basically starting on one side of the ship and traveling through it in a zigzag fashion, which they'll either locate her or pin her at the front of the ship. This is where they decided to put the 5-minute break, for lack of a more suspenseful place to put it, I suppose. Alpha is actually far more concerned still that the Rangers are actually who they say they are. Marv says that the best possible way for them to solve the situation is for them to reveal information that only certain other Rangers would know that can verify that they are who they say they are. Here we go! Get your popcorn ready, everybody! So Marv asks Vesper about the one-on-one conversation that the two of them had, and she says that he revealed to her that he is an alien. That's not actually such a big bombshell, since that came out to the entire team just a short time later, but checkmark there. Jack asks Chloe about the day he apprehended her at the Time Force Academy in the evidence room. What was in the evidence box that she was trying to steal? Chloe says she wasn't stealing it. It was more of a Robin Hood situation. That box had stuff in it that was being wasted. She was going to give it to people that were in need. That, however, is not Jack's concern. He presses the issue because he's trying to find out her identity. What was in the box that she was trying to take? She says it was some old technological evidence. Check, but with the benefit of hindsight, we come to find out in a later session that this actually wasn't the case. So that's interesting, though I will say it doesn't have an impact on the plot. Chloe is who she says she is, and that was right. However, what about Jack himself? Jack points out, hey, Marv shot Chloe. He might do well to remember that he also shot Chloe, but Marv says that that was an accident. And by the way, Chloe, who was that woman that you were talking to? Chloe reveals the situation about her parents to the rest of the Rangers. To verify Jack's identity, Marv does what he knows needs to be done and asks Jack what the secret was that Marv revealed to him that got Marv kicked off the Time Force and back into the Academy. Jack says that Marv took Joe's badge and hacked it, reprogrammed it to say that he was a Time Force officer instead of a cadet. So basically, Marv skipped the Time Force Academy. It seems to me like there would be a lot more involved than in tricking them into thinking he was an officer than just changing the name that was written on the badge, more or less, but hey. Marv. I'm a Time Force officer. Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know you had graduated. Yeah. Marv says that it was all that he could think to do because Time Force refused to look for Joe. Jack admits to Marv that yes, he was the one who reported this, basically from a lawful good sense. Time Force rules prohibit anyone from using time travel to correct or avenge any sort of personal agenda. Marv backs down from his anger at Jack, admitting that he was the one that was in the wrong. He was the one who cheated to get to where he was. Vesper wonders why this creature hadn't shown her anything from her past, showing her Eddie from her present instead. This makes her think that maybe she has always been a cyborg, and the memories of her childhood that she has are fake. But then they realize, no. If this creature is reading minds and stealing memories, it wouldn't matter if those memories were real or fake, because they're real to the person who's remembering them and would still have the same impact. And that's when the Rangers put it together. Their pasts are literally plastered all over the walls of the ship. Jack's investigation. Jack hardly found anything on Vesper's past, so the creature had nothing to work with and went with someone from her present. Suddenly the ship jolts, exiting the hyperstream and landing somewhere very roughly. The Rangers ask Alpha what's going on. Alpha says, "Oops, my bad." Alpha doesn't make those kind of mistakes. And then Alpha calls the Rangers over the ship's communication system, saying that some kind of strange creature tricked him and captured him. The Rangers restrain this Alpha, but he breaks right out of the restraints and turns into a giant white monkey. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Prematur, a monster from Mighty Morphin Season 2 with the ability to change his shape. And that's when it all falls into place. The Alliance leader wouldn't just leave behind a general he worked so hard to recruit. The Rangers never had Scorpina to begin with. It was Prematur from the word go. And all of this was a plan to get him onto their ship. Alpha runs in, sees that there's a monster inside of the ship, and absolutely panics. And I'm talking about far more than usual for Alpha. Alpha goes into defense mode. Defense mode is a giant laser cannon that comes out of Alpha's chest. He fires a huge beam at the monster, which not only knocks it back, but blasts a huge hole in their ship and knocks the monster out of it. The Rangers jump out after Prematur and go to work, but not before he blasts them for 13 damage.
Hyperforce! Red!
Blue!
Pink! Black!
Yellow!
Vesper throws her disc at the monkey, but he dodges it. Eddie places his blade blaster into water mode, which is a thing that he can apparently do, I guess. But the monster dodges around again, because he's very shifty and dodgy and monkey-like. Marv taps Chloe for another one of their fantastic teamwork attacks. But this time it actually works. She fires off a hurricane whirlwind, and he goes spinning through it and claws Prematur for 10 damage. Malika has made an adjustment to the teamwork attacks, and I don't understand it 100%, but the best way I can think to describe it that makes sense is that the primary attacking player, the one whose turn it is, has to outroll the monster, but the secondary player only has to outroll a stated difficulty level for the attack, which is usually lower. On her own turn, Chloe uses her Eye of the Phoenix attack, but Prematur just headbutts her finger. Ow! Jack uses his Ram Rush attack to run at the monster, who decides to grow, so Jack basically runs headlong into a big toe. The Rangers call their Hyperzords, but Jack is concerned that they don't quite have enough energy to form the Hyperforce Megazord. However, Malika tells him not to worry about such things, and Marv decides to tab Chloe as the heart of the Megazord this time around. Disappointingly to me, this doesn't actually lead to a new Megazord configuration like I was theorizing. It just changes the attacks that the Megazord has access to. Basically the ones that the Ranger who's controlling it has in their own Zord. So, strangely enough, even though the Hyperforce Kronos Megazord always has Phoenix wings on its back, it can only fly when Chloe's in the driver's seat. The Megazord does a couple of Phoenix Feathers attacks, which gets the other Rangers quite dizzy since their Zords don't fly. They then do a giant Hurricane Whirlwind attack and throw blades through it, but those blades miss. As a matter of fact, it doesn't seem like the Rangers are doing much damage to Prematur, and that is not going to prove true in the inverse. Prematur runs up to the Megazord, grabs it, and rips off its arms, which are Marv and Vesper's Zords, or at least pieces of them. How this thing configures is kind of unclear. He smacks them together and hits for 60 damage. The Megazord still has legs, so it runs up to try to kick Prematur, but without arms, it's off balance, so it falls over backwards and falls out of Megazord assembly. So this can actually be seen as a kind of a positive plot detail, since 4 of these Rangers are cadets, and the 5th hasn't been a Power Ranger at the very least. But this team really sometimes does not use the best strategy. Instead of trying to reform the Megazord, or at the very least battling inside of their Zords, they have Chloe fire off another Whirlwind attack, and then get out of their Zords and try to shoot Prematur with the Vortex Blaster. However, Chloe's Zord has been destabilized by all this, and they miss. Vesper tells them that they don't know where they are, they don't know when they are, so they really have no obligation to wherever this is, and they should just leave. However, Marv says as Power Rangers, they have a duty to protect wherever and whenever they are. At this point, they do try to reform the Megazord, however the Zords don't respond to them. Chloe is actually still inside of her Zord, but it has been flung very far away from the others. Prematur goes to stomp on them again, but then hears something and kind of starts spazzing out. He shrinks and turns into a tree, then a rock, then a flower, then some grass, then a twig, a chipmunk, a cloud. He just can't seem to make up his mind. Marv takes a shot at the monster, but it doesn't respond. It just keeps changing forms. Eddie walks over to where it was in a large pile of rocks and tries to bait the monster, going, "Boy, you know, there's a lot of stuff in my past that sure is painful, but at least I've got my friends now that make me happy." Prematur doesn't take the bait, however, so Eddie goes ham and just starts blasting the rocks. This does get Prematur to take the bait, turning into Bianca and running off into the woods. They have Vesper create a large holographic banana to try to lure Prematur out. A chipmunk walks up, interested in the banana, but then jumps right through it and looks at them with red, angry eyes before running away. They follow the chipmunk and find 4 little baby chipmunks. Aww. Then the larger chipmunk comes back and shoves the babies aside, turns into Prematur, and runs away. The chipmunk babies are scared now, so Marv finds some nuts to give to them to make them feel better. One of the babies clings on to Marv's little finger and then stays grasped onto him as he tries to leave. And then that baby turns into Prematur, which doesn't make the first bit of sense if you think about it, because Prematur was the chipmunks that shoved the babies out of the way and then ran away. I don't even know if it's a matter of him being that fast. This just doesn't make any sense. However it happened, Prematur has a hold of Marv now and says he's not the one they were trying to get, but he's going to have to do. He opens an invisiportal back to the Alliance ship and takes Marv with him. Eddie dives for the portal, but it closes. Marv is gone. The Rangers call Alpha and have him scan for Marv, but he doesn't detect anything. But he does scan the energy that came from the portal, and now understands why the Alliance was in 2005, though if you think about it, I did just kind of give that away. Whether or not their primary mission was to get Mesogog to join them, what they were really after was the invisiportal technology. So now the Alliance has the ability to just jump back and forth freely through space, as well as time. Marv is gone, and the Rangers are for the moment without a leader. They decide that they need to contact Jen. But then the Rangers hear the sound of galloping, and 3 very shiny knights ride up. They demand to know who the Rangers are, and they very awkwardly and carefully identify themselves, asking who the knights are. They say they are knights of this realm, and ask, "Who is that over there, that tinier knight in the strange armor?" Alpha freaks out and puts himself into invisibility mode, cloaking the ship as well. Of course, at this point, the 3 knights pull their swords and accuse the Rangers of being witches. Seeing their swords, Eddie advises the other Rangers that they are in the past. The very, very, very far distant past. The session ends with the Rangers getting a text message from Alpha on their morphers. 2 words. 6th century. This session had some really good action, with a nice fight with what we know now was fake Scorpina at the start of the session, and a really brutal giant monster Zord fight that the Rangers actually lost for once. However, the key to this session was definitely deep, heavy character development. You had this really dark science fiction horror, almost like The Thing, kind of idea of a monster that the Rangers didn't even know what it was at first, probing into their past, and not just hiding that way, but turning into these people that a lot of the Rangers really deeply missed and cared about. I haven't really been naming session MVPs, and that's not something that I plan to make a habit of, but I just have to give Megan Camarena, Strawberry 17, special recognition for this session. That scene with her and her mother one-on-one, just on the stage, if you will, alone, just completely focused on, and she absolutely owned that moment. It was just such good acting, and not just the method acting tears, but wow, the method acting tears. But just the entire delivery and emotion of that scene was incredible. Special honorable mention to Peter Sudarso, by the way, who covered an entire range of emotions in seeing his brother again and then having his brother disappear again. I know that there are many of us Ranger fans who are so incredibly frustrated that an actor with the acting chops of Peter Sudarso that we see during Hyperforce was given the material that he had to work with during Ninja Steel. The best compliment that I can give this session that sums my thoughts up most succinctly is that it is a crystal clear demonstration of everything that a story like Power Rangers is capable of being. This show that is just for kids. We had an unmorphed fight, we had a morphed fight, we had a giant monster and Zord fight. We also had paranoia, suspicion, betrayal, feelings of hurt, feelings of jealousy, this very deep emotion and dark feelings that were part of the story just as much as the spandex fights and the Zord fights. Family easily gets a 5 out of 5. That's going to do it for another Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. Hopefully, as I'm working to catch up on these videos, you will very quickly be seeing my reviews of Session 11, Session 12, Session 13. But remember, we also now have Super Ninja Steel that's here, and I have those last few off-season hiatus videos to get done. Jeez, I need a time machine. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching. Make sure to like the video by clicking that like button right down below. In the comments below, let me know what you thought about this session and what you thought of my review of it. And Thumpers, always glad to see you. Make sure to check in, say hi. Subscribe to the channel to see all of my videos, and make sure to ring the bell, get your notifications set up, so you'll be notified of whenever I post brand new videos, just like this Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. And if you just so happen to think that the work I've done in this video is worthy of a little bit of tip change, you can head over to digitaltipjar.com/orangerangervid, toss in whatever kind of financial support you would like. I am deeply grateful for anything that ends up in that tip jar. Until next time, heroes, may the power protect you, and go Hyperforce. Quick note before we actually get things started about that title, actually. Well before they get posted to YouTube, she yells back to the ship that it can leave, that she'll take care of the Rangers here and now. It jumps into the Alpha is now more concerned than ever at... Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Prematur. Ladies and gentlemen... My throat is still screwed up. La 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 la. The Rangers call Marv...